Speaking as we speak, the newest reaction from Kim Jong-un this evening is a bit of a mixed message. On the one hand, seeming to sort of backpedal on the idea that this is a scuttled summit, saying we express our willingness to sit down face-to-face with the United States to resolve the issue anytime in any format. However, there's also a sort of 1-2 punch here, which goes to the issue of whether or not they would ever consider unilateral
some U.S. troops
denuclearization. Senior Foreign Affairs correspondent Greg Palcott is live in Seoul, South Korea, with some more reaction to this late-breaking news tonight. Greg.
Yeah, it's fascinating, Martha. When we last talked in this hour, we were speculating about how nimble North Korea might be to react to the changes, the shifts from the White House regarding the cancellation of the next month's summit. And now we're seeing it via KCNA, that's the state media of North Korea, broadcasting and coming through with a text statement coming from the vice foreign minister, the vice chairman of the North Korean government. One line particularly caught my eye, Martha. Let me read it to you and your viewers. Our commitment to doing our best for the sake of peace and stability for the world and the Korean Peninsula remains unchanged, and we are open-minded in giving time and opportunity to the United States. I mean, that's quite remarkable. I was just speaking to some of our analyst contacts here in Seoul. We're coming up on Friday morning here, and they say, I mean, this could be all part of the negotiating process. The trick is, and the hitch is, that most times in dealing with North Korea or other diplomatic situations like this diplomacy happens behind the scenes. Maybe with the Trump administration and the way he conducts his policy, now we're seeing it out in the public. Maybe this is all a part of a scheme, all a part of a system to get North Korea back at the table on the terms that perhaps the United States, the Trump administration, wants to see. Perhaps it is a gambit. And in fact, President Trump on Thursday said they are still open. The Trump administration is still open to talking to North Korea. Just right now, I found striking the comments from Secretary of State Pompeo on Thursday when he said that for 3 days his team was in Singapore waiting for the North Korean team to show up. The North Korea team did not show up. That's quite a slap in the face to the #1 superpower in the world. South Korea here, the government has also dealt with that in the past week or so. So, in fact, the Trump decision, the Trump administration decision to call off for now a summit might be a part of getting North Korea in line. And maybe, again, just in the past hour or so, maybe we've seen North Korea following through. Back to you.
We will see. NBC News is reporting tonight that the president wanted to get out ahead and sort of be the first to cancel the summit. And as we're now learning, and as you point out, Greg Palcott, we know that effort to set up the summit itself in Singapore, they didn't show up to even be engaged in that, which is pretty striking, as Greg pointed out and as we talked about as well. Greg Palcott, thank you very much for being with us. Let's bring in Chris Darwell, Fox News politics editor, to talk about the political side of this. Chris, you know, when you read the final statement that we have so far from Kim Jong-un, it's kind of the footnote asterisk, which counts a whole heck of a lot. He says, by the way, that President Trump's desire doesn't meet the world's desire for peace and stability, both in the world and on the Korean Peninsula. The tremendous anger and open hostility, that's a direct quote from President Trump's letter this morning, that Trump mentioned is just a backlash in response to a unilateral denuclearization being pushed ahead of the North and U.S. summit. Those messages were coming from Vice President Pence when I spoke with him the other night, Chris, and also from John Bolton as well. Your thoughts?
Right. For domestic political consumption in the United States, the administration was very keen not to be seen as too soft or too accommodating with the Kim regime. So, we're tough and it's going to be tough, like, remember Libya, and we're going to take a hard line and they're going to denuclearize and all of that stuff. Because in part to answer political pressure at home about Americans, left, right, center, who said, are we going to give away the farm here? So that tough talk then manifests itself in the response from the North Koreans, who I'm sure were looking for an excuse to be offended. And then you have the president of these United States who wants to get out ahead of, you can't fire me, I quit. So he's going to jump out of these before Kim can cancel them. And that puts Kim now in the position of being able to say, hey, I wanted to talk. I don't know why he walked away, even if they didn't show up in Singapore for the meetings, even if they were getting ready to bail out themselves, because he got Trump to go first. Now Kim can say, well, I wanted to talk the whole time. It's unfortunate America doesn't want peace.
Yeah, I mean, it would really be fascinating to know exactly what Kim Jong-un and Mike Pompeo spoke about, the Secretary of State, because he came back feeling like, we're in really good shape with this summit. And, that's a story still to be told. About 15 seconds left, Chris.
And it would be even more interesting to know what has gone on between Xi Jinping and China and Kim, and what China and how China's working him and working us through this process.
Chris, thank you so much for hopping in. Good to see you tonight on this Breaking News Night. Quick break here on the story, and we will be right back.
News app now.
Busy night and lots more to come as we get breaking news in the North Korea story. That is our story for tonight, though. We'll see you back here tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Tucker Carlson up next from D.C.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. We're coming to you this Thursday, unfortunately, from a very sick city, a place where many of the people in charge aren't just wrong, but increasingly are irrational. Washington is in the grip of unprecedented mass hysteria over Russia. Yes, Russia. Take 3 steps back. It's a freezing poor country on the other side of the globe, where the average life expectancy is lower than that in Bangladesh. Russia is a place whose economy is smaller than the economy of Texas. It's a country that can barely produce a working escalator or non-poisonous vodka. And yet that country, which was regarded by sober people as sad and increasingly irrelevant, is, according to Democrats in Washington, in virtually complete control of the workings of the U.S. government. They tell us that every day, and they're starting to seem like they believe it. That's demented. The most striking new example comes from former Director of National Intelligence, Jim Clapper. In an interview just yesterday, Clapper claimed Keep in mind that Jim Clapper is not some fringe radio show host or backbencher in Congress. For years, he held one of the top intelligence posts in the country. Yet he's delusional. That's terrifying. And he's not the only delusional one. The CIA operative spying on the Trump campaign also sounds like he's unbalanced. A report today from the Daily Caller finds that that man once falsely accused a Russian academic at Cambridge University of being a Russian infiltrator and said an entire intelligence seminar was compromised by Russian agents, like Kim Philby were still alive. This afternoon, congressional leaders received a classified briefing from DOJ and intel officials about actual spying that took place in 2016. Not spying from spooky Russian agents sent from the Kremlin, but from the Obama FBI. And that might put some of this in perspective. Tom Fitton is the president of Judicial Watch. Molly Hemingway is an editor at The Federalist. They join us now. Thank you to you both. Molly, I'll start with you. And I hate to start on a media question, but it determines how people understand a story, what they read and what they see on television. There are still news outlets as of tonight that are pretending like there was no spying on the Trump campaign. So can you just say definitively, do we know as a factual matter that the Obama FBI spied on the Trump campaign, or don't we?
Well, everyone knows that there was a spy, and in fact, people who were involved in the spying are admitting that there is a spy. They're saying, though, that because the government term is human intelligence informant or something like that, that therefore it's not a spy. Whereas normal Americans understand that when you are gathering information on someone surreptitiously, that's the common definition of spying. And more than that, that's just a stunning revelation that this was happening under the previous administration, that there would be this kind of surveillance, not just at least one human intelligence informant, but also wiretaps, national security letters, which are how you can secretly get a subpoena, and who knows what else is going on. So actually, like, widespread spying involving multiple people in the Trump campaign, and we still don't really know what's going on because they're trying to fight.
And that's the point. And by the way, I should point out in the interest of honesty that these are agencies controlled by the Trump White House. So it's not clear to me at all why we don't know this, and that why the committees in the Congress who have oversight over all of this don't know. There was a meeting today, famously, about this, Tom. Do you think members of Congress, again charged with oversight of this stuff, know the answer as of tonight?
No, my understanding is they're still being strung along. This meeting was for show. We want to see the documents.
So why would they be strung along?
Because these agencies have contempt for congressional oversight. You have this extraordinary situation of a Republican-controlled Justice Department and FBI attacking and undermining the congressional oversight activities of a Republican-controlled House and Senate. And they didn't want to turn over the documents, so they said, well, we'll have a meeting and we'll talk about the secret spy game we had, but it won't be public. We won't tell you what we have in terms of turning over documents, which is still the big fight. You know, Judicial Watch specializes in the Freedom of Information Act because we recognize the government documents really tell you what went on, and government official descriptions of what went on, as we're learning from the Obama gang that's describing this spy as an informant in a dishonest way. We need to see the documents. We need to know how much money was this person paid. Was money transferred as a result of his involvement with the Trump campaign? Who else was he working with? Were there others?
But there's a time limit. There's a timer. Sand is passing through the hourglass here. If Democrats take the House and take majority control of these committees, then how will we find out? They have no interest in getting this information to the public.
And this is why it would be nice if everyone on both sides of the aisle had a common understanding that spying on political opponents is not a good precedent, and it's not good for having Americans having confidence in the FBI.
Have you seen any liberals say that?
I mean, there have been a few, I think very exceedingly few. Mark Penn is someone who was a Clinton advisor who has been making that argument. In addition to the issue that the Department of Justice thinks that they are accountable to no one, not the president under in whose branch they serve, or Congress, which funds them and created them, I think it also must mean that the information is really damaging, really dangerous, that they're willing to subvert any authority in order to keep that a secret. So this is something that I think they can keep this from getting out. I don't think they will actually.
Yeah, and the pretexts they use to hide this information from public view are dishonest. So tonight, Eric Felton, a reporter in Washington, has a piece explaining that one of the many facts redacted by the FBI in documents obtained through FOIA reveals that Andy McCabe spent $70,000 on a piece of office furniture. They held that back on grounds of national security. Does that imperil us, Tom, as a country, now that our enemies know that Andy McCabe spent $70,000 on a piece of office furniture?
I mean, of course it doesn't. And it shows you that the FBI and the Department of Justice can't be trusted to evaluate fairly whether documents should be released or not. And the president, who constitutionally runs the agencies, needs to intervene and stop himself from being strung along by his appointees, and tell them to release these records.
Right. He's listening
Review
to his
them
lawyers.
quickly.
Never listen to your lawyers. If there's one piece of advice I have for my children, it's don't listen to your lawyers, because they don't have the truth at heart.
Take their advice into account and get the information out.
Yeah, just do the right thing, I would say. Thank you both very much. Great to see you. Richard Goodstein is an attorney, by the way. We're going to listen to him. He advised both of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaigns. He joins us tonight. Richard, thanks a lot for coming on. So Democrats are now telling us that not only did Russia definitively alter the outcome of the 2016 election, which is insane, but they're predicting that Russia will affect the outcome of the 2018 midterms. This is preemptive because they know they're not going to do as well as they hoped. But let's take them seriously. If that's true, why shouldn't we be taking steps right now to protect ourselves? Why shouldn't we do a forensic search of all voter rolls to make sure that no foreign citizens are registered to vote? Russian agents, for example, that only American citizens can vote. Why wouldn't we do that if we take this seriously?
So it's not just Clapper who's saying that the Russians are trying to meddle in the 2018 elections. It's guys you may have heard of: Mike Pompeo, Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates, the Director of National Security Mike Rogers. Right? They testified before Congress.
I'm pretending to believe it.
Well, believe them. They're Republicans.
I don't care about people's party ID.
Okay, well,
there are many Republicans I wouldn't trust for anything.
That's up to you.
But I'm just saying, let's pretend it's true.
Yeah.
That the main espionage threat we face is from Russia. Okay. Mm-hmm. If we really believe that, then why aren't we going through every voter roll in the United States and making sure that only Americans are determining the outcome of the election? Well, why wouldn't we do that?
I think we should absolutely make sure that the voter integrity is as kind of upheld as possible. Okay.
What would happen if we tried to do that? Democrats would freak out and call it racist.
But here's where you kind of dismiss Clapper that I think is not funny. Your advertisers on Fox News spend billions of dollars a year to move people's opinions about things, right? And if they didn't think that was effective, they wouldn't spend it. What Clapper's saying is the Russians reached through Facebook 126 million people. 135 million people voted. Okay? So the point is that they were trying to move opinion. Okay. And if you think that doesn't work, then you should tell your advertisers go somewhere else.
What he actually said was, I have no evidence that what I just said was true. He just said that on television.
No,
you can look. Actually, he did say that.
No, what he said was that we weren't charged with assessing what exactly as an agency.
He was asked. I just watched the tape. Whatever. Look, here's the point. I'm not contesting the core claim, though I believe it to be untrue. I'm just asking you in the most sincere way possible, if we believe that the Russians are going to do this again and they really are a threat, then why aren't we doing something about it? Why are we allowing electronic voting? Why don't we go back to paper ballots? And I'll tell you the answer. Because Democrats like loose voting rules because they benefit from voter fraud.
Yeah.
So they do everything they can.
That's a perversion of the fact that
why aren't they doing something about it?
People who are inclined to vote Democrats, blacks, Hispanics, and so forth, are the ones who ultimately are, I think, held to a standard that is going to be very hard for them to meet in terms of IDs and so forth, driver's licenses.
What?
I think statistically, the people who are lower socioeconomically don't have driver's license. That's not a revelation.
No, you don't need a driver's license.
Well,
you need
I'm just saying,
ID
whatever it is.
to hold a job or open a bank account. This is an insane.
And maybe you have to go 50 miles away to the office that gives you that ID, which they don't have the wherewithal to do.
Here's what I'm saying. I think it's a very patronizing thing to say about a large group of people.
It's statistically true.
It's not actually statistically true. I've dug into the stats, and it's a lie.
Yeah.
But let me just get to what we can do in the future. Why wouldn't we say paper ballots only? Why wouldn't we say, let's go through every voter roll in America and make sure only American citizens and not spooky foreign agents are registered to vote?
And
Why is that hard?
I think we should make sure that only Americans are voting, as we should make sure that it's only Americans who are trying to influence campaigns, not Russians, not all these people that Don Trump Jr. met with. That's against the law.
What's hilarious is that we both live in a city and that thrives on foreign influence, and we know, 25 people who've gotten rich in our city from foreign governments, not Russia. Okay,
Right.
so let's stop lying about that. This city is totally influenced by foreign governments, just not Russia.
Well,
China is the top of the list.
It's against the law to try to influence the campaign, right? So these people who are foreign agents and trying to influence what some department or other.
So you would be in favor of examining every voter roll in every state to make certain that every person on those rolls is currently an American citizen.
And I'd like to see the same effort.
Would you be in favor of that?
I'm saying, and I'd like to see the same effort put into registering people who have heretofore been basically kept from registering.
Yes. No one's being kept from registering. That's a lie. They register the homeless here.
I don't think that is a lie. I think it's demonstrably true.
But hold on. The people who are on, I just want to get you on the record here. You would be for, in the name of protecting this country and the integrity of its elections from foreign influence, making sure that only American citizens are on the voter rolls, period.
I think that only Americans should vote. But again,
American citizens.
American citizens should vote. I think that's what I consider an American.
But shouldn't we take everyone else off the rolls who's not?
Of course, non-American citizens should not be voting in the United States. And I don't think there's, notwithstanding what Donald Trump said about the millions, right? That's a lie. And he should take that back. That's dishonest to the American voter.
Democrats can't even concede that we're allowed to ask on the census form whether you're a citizen or not. On the census.
Because that affects other things having to do with what money might go to a particular state or county.
So there are municipalities here in the D.C. area in Maryland that allow non-citizens to vote. You must be against that. I mean, that'd be a prime way for Russians to influence our elections.
I think only American citizens should vote in federal elections. Absolutely.
What about state elections?
Well,
Russians can't influence the state elections too. You could have Vladimir Putin come to Silver Spring, Maryland.
Here's
and
the
cast
problem.
A vote.
You think it's a laughing matter that the Russians did what they did. Most Americans
don't. Is a laughing matter.
Most Americans think it's not funny that the Russians meddled, and in fact we're trying to favor Trump with something that our own head of Homeland Security can't acknowledge.
What I find hilarious is when Democrats pretend that they care about the integrity of elections. All they care about is power. You know that. And whether their candidates win. That is the sum total of what they care about. So to pretend otherwise is like so ludicrous. I live here. I know the truth.
I think if you flip the names Trump and Hillary and had the Russians trying to help her, we would have had impeachment hearings starting on January 21st.
Russia, which has a lower average life expectancy than Bangladesh, is secretly in control of our country.
It's not secretly. They're actually ridiculously open about it, which is the sad thing.
Richard, it was great to see you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a Fox News alert for you. North Korea has responded to President Trump's cancellation of a planned summit, and astonishingly, their message is not angry. North Korea's foreign minister said his government is still willing to sit down with the United States, quote, at any time, at any format, and is, quote, willing to give the United States time and opportunities to reconsider today's cancellation. Not quite sure what that means, but we'll continue to follow the story because Democrats are now trying to another tack going into the midterm elections. This one is attacking the president over rising gas prices, but wait, Haven't the Democrats been demanding higher gas prices for more than a decade? Huh. Mark Stein may remember that. He joins us after the break. So the geniuses in the strategy division over at the DNC assumed they could ride the Russia hoax all the way to a midterm win, but polls suggest that might not be working out. So now they're going after the administration's economic record. Unemployment is pretty low. The stock market is pretty high. So instead, the attack is on gas prices, which are going up, and that is bad for the middle class. Something to be worried about. The problem, of course, is the Democratic Party has spent years vowing to increase gas prices if elected in the name of stopping global warming. The 2016 platform literally demanded a higher tax. Mark Stein is an author and columnist. He was alive in 2016, paying attention. He may remember that plank in the platform. What does he make of it now? Hey, Mark.
Well, hi, Tucker. Yeah, it's kind of any port in a storm. The blue wave is petering out as it comes towards shore. And you said the Russia hoax. I mean, you got to think in the chancelleries of the world right now, if all the people who told us that Trump had no chance to win in 2016, if somehow the blue wave doesn't happen and the Republicans win the midterms, there's a huge opportunity for a sinister foreign power out there that they can get the Democrats to blame them for stealing the election. So we can have a Slovenia investigation or a Tajikistan investigation or a Solomon Islands investigation. So if you're the Solomon Islands ambassador, now would be a really good time to book a lunch with, say, Mitch McConnell, so it'll look suspicious on the Wednesday morning after in November. And I don't want to give any ideas to the DNC or the FBI, but if the FBI has any spare Cambridge professors lying around that it would like to, say to minor Trump officials, maybe a staffer to Mitch McConnell. Oh, you know that Slovenia has all those DNC emails. I mean, you've got to figure this is the time to be moving on to the next plot now that Russia hasn't worked out.
So you're laughing about this, but the next independent counsel, or maybe 4 independent counsels from now, will be pulling this tape and using it as evidence at your trial.
Yeah. No, that's right. What did I know and when did I know it? That's, but I mean, one of the things, I mean, just to be serious here for a moment, because I don't really take this thing that seriously. I think the Democrats actually have a problem with a lack of message, and to profess now to be concerned about gas prices after they've derided the Trump tax cut as crumbs and all the rest of it. I mean, I think actually the solution is not to replace the Russia investigation with gas prices. The solution is to figure out that Trump connected with millions and millions of people who switched on the TV and found neither the Republican nor Democrat establishments in the least bit concerned about them. And that's the difference. That's what made the difference.
Middle-class life expectancy, as of yesterday, is down for the 3rd year in a row. Why don't they run on that? But they don't care. That's the problem.
No,
so
I mean...
I got to ask you about Harvey Weinstein. So, because I can't control myself. Obviously, the ex-Hollywood mogul, mega donor, and Hillary Clinton superfan. He's set to turn himself in to authorities in New York on sex crime charges.
Right.
This story's basically, this is the denouement of the story. Do you want to put a bow on it? What should we think of this?
Well, you're right about the Hillary connection. They actually had lunch to discuss after her defeat, Harvey Weinstein making the documentary about Hillary's defeat. That's how tied in they are. I think this is quite important, though, because the Me Too movement, there's an element of moral panic to it. But there's no doubt about this guy. He's been credibly accused of rape by actresses in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, France, New Zealand, all over the planet. And this tells us something about the way wealthy and powerful men use things like confidentiality agreements to silence people and get away with their crimes for decades on end. And that's the lesson here. Don't live in silence, don't live in fear, and frankly, things like confidentiality agreements, I think, should have a far more circumscribed place in American life.
I mean, there's also, I agree with everything you said, but there's also a sub-lesson here, which is, if you're wondering what people are up to, look at the behavior that they denounce in public. It's probably the very same thing. I mean, Harvey Weinstein was this great champion of women, as was Schneiderman. You know, the one thing I'm not in favor of is hurting women, and of course they were both doing that exact thing. I don't think that's an accident.
No, and I also think that's a liberal thing, by the way, is you profess to care about people in general. So you care about third world people in general, or gays in general, or Muslims in general, and you take that as a license to trash and abuse people in particular. And that's what ties Harvey Weinstein, Schneiderman, and a lot of these mostly Democrat, mostly liberal figures together. They said all the right things in public, and then they've got the door lock button under the desk in private, and they've got the standard non-disclosure agreement stacked in triplicate inside the desk.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's what they all have in common. They love humanity in general and abuse humans in particular.
That's perfect. If reading and writing still exist once this revolution is over, I'll be really excited to read the history of this period. You know, that stands back and makes sense of it. So I hope you write it. Mark Steyn, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Tucker.
Well, the Democratic Party in open warfare against ICE when Congresswoman used to attack the agency for doing their job. It's very amusing tape, and we wouldn't want the night pass without showing it to you. So we will next. Well, ICE Chief Thomas Homan testified on Capitol Hill recently. Democratic Congresswoman Nanette Berrigan of California decided she couldn't waste the opportunity, so she began berating him for the crime of doing what he is paid to do. According to the Congresswoman, ICE's enforcement of national laws is immoral. Watch this.
We love to talk about this issue about the MS-13 gangs. We love to paint immigrants as criminals. That is not the complete facts. And that is very offensive for me to see continuing to happen, is continuing to message this anti-immigrant agenda.
First of all, no one on this panel is anti-immigrant. We're law enforcement officers who enforce the law that you all enacted. So to sit there and say that we're anti-immigrants is wrong.
Well, we invited that non-genius member of Congress to come on the show and explain the reasoning behind her statement, but of course she declined. Instead, we're joined by New York attorney and illegal immigrant Cesar Vargas. Cesar, thanks for coming on.
Tucker, thank you so much for having me again.
I don't know why I find this is maybe the most amusing thing I think I've ever seen. So here's I guess she's a member of Congress, going head-to-head with the director of ICE and claiming that it is wrong for him to do what he is paid to do. What does she think ICE does?
Well, any law enforcement agency, their job is to keep us safe, correct? Their job is to ensure that community trusts law enforcement, to ensure everyone is safe, regardless of their immigration status.
No, it's to enforce the laws.
No,
yeah.
well, exactly, right? Why do we enforce the law? To keep us safe. Now, ICE is tripling the amount of people arrested without violent criminal records. So the congressman is right on that point, where not only is ICE going after the rapists, the murderers, they're going after grandma. They're going after
so does the law?
labor.
No, wait, hold on. You're the attorney.
Nanny.
I've got a question for you. So the law says that ICE can only arrest people with certain kinds of criminal records or commit certain kinds of crimes. Is that what the federal law says?
Federal law says that Immigration Customs Enforcement has to detain people who violently violate laws, in like murder, like anything like that. But the law says that ICE and any law enforcement agency has the discretion to pursue the most violent criminals. So ICE is going after the grannies instead of the murderers. ICE is going after the day laborers instead of the rapists. So ICE is not doing their job when they are just focusing on everyone instead of using our resources on keeping us safe.
For example, hold on. You're here illegally, correct?
No. Like I had DACA, and now I'm in the process of changing my immigration status.
Okay.
So no.
Okay.
So we have to understand.
Okay.
I'm an attorney.
Totally
you're not, and your viewers are not. So I need to explain the law clearly
just asking
to every single person.
You may be an attorney, but you're misstating a fact, which is that people who are here illegally are by definition violating federal law. And so ICE absolutely has a right, in fact, it's its charter to enforce federal law, so it has a right to detain them, and the United States government and its citizens have a right to deport them. Whether they choose to or not is another question. But you can't attack somebody for enforcing the law as written. By the way, as written by the Congress in which that member of Congress sits. So I don't know if they taught you this part in law school, but what she said is insane.
No, I think it's very clearly. Look, I think, listen, ICE has a job to do. No question about it. The Congress has their job to do. And you're right, they haven't got their job done in years. They haven't passed immigration reform. They haven't passed proper
what? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
But I think it comes to the point of where we are at this moment, that we need to keep this nation safe. And ICE should go after people who violently threaten
I
our
don't know
security.
why I'm taking a lecture on ICE law from someone who broke our laws to come here. But hold on. If you think that that's true, then you're obviously not bothered by the president's emphasis on rounding up known members of a murderous street gang. But I bet you are bothered by that, right? Are you one of the people who, are you one of the animal rights activists who wept when he used the word animal to describe MS-13?
Well, listen, I think we should keep our nation safe. And law enforcement has their job to do, whether it's the NYPD, the LAPD, or ICE. They have a job to do. Now, the president is confusing two things, like many things. If MS-13 is the product of the U.S., we created MS-13.
Oh, it's
just
our
as we
fault.
created the KKK.
Why does it always come down? You know, this is actually the one thing that does irritate me, so I want to cut this part of the conversation short because I don't want to get mad at you. But blaming the United States for fentanyl ODs, for MS-13, for the waves of people coming to this country illegally, in your description, it's always our fault.
No,
we deserve
it's the fact. Very different thing.
It's not
you
a
said
fact.
don't
it's a
have a lecture.
subjective assessment.
It's a
okay,
fact.
but hold on, wait.
We created in the 1980s when you just look it up.
I don't have any patience for this, so I'm not going to let you continue because you don't know what you're talking about. I don't want to mislead my viewers. But let me just ask you really quickly: if you think the job of ICE is to protect American citizens and they ought to go after violent criminals, then why wouldn't you be encouraging them to round up every MS-13 member in this country illegally and deport them tomorrow? But I bet you're not for that. I bet you're defending MS-13 like everybody else on your side, right?
I think if MS-13 or any gang member violently commits a crime, kills someone, they should spend the rest of their life in prison. That's what our law says, right?
Someone's a member,
I'm agreeing with you and many of your viewers.
If you believe someone's a member of MS-13 and he's here illegally, you don't think that's enough to deport him?
Well, why are we going to really exacerbate a problem?
Okay, so I just want to reveal to my viewers where you're
They
actually
come over there and make people come back. You know, it's the logic that we need to see. We cannot exacerbate a problem by sending people who we created.
It's America's fault. Yeah, we created it. What do you mean we? You're not even a citizen. Anyway, Caesar, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Time for Final Exam. Can you beat our news experts at the news? You'll find out after the break. Time now for Final Exam, where we determine through rigorous testing which of our employees are paying attention to the work they do. This week's defending champion is Fox News correspondent Griff Jenkins, still injured but still razor sharp. His challenger, Fox business correspondent Christina Partsnevlis. Welcome to Fox and to the show. We're really glad to have you.
I'm excited.
Thank you. Okay, you know who you're up against.
I know, it's deceiving.
He doesn't seem as formidable as he really is.
Listen, Christina, welcome, by the way. She is brilliant. She speaks like 5 languages. I'm doomed. This is the one where I'm going down.
Prepping. He has his hand ready to go.
He undersells it every time. Okay, I'm sure you know the rules because I know you've been glued to this, but in case you need a refresher, here's what they are. I ask the questions, hands on buzzers. The first person to buzz in gets to answer. You must wait until I finish asking the question in order to buzz in. Each correct answer is worth a single point. If you get a question wrong, a point is detracted from your total. Best of 5 wins. Are you ready?
Yeah. Are you ready?
Ready? Let's do it.
Question 1. The Wall Street Journal reports this week that Amazon, the company, may now terminate your account if you do what too often? Holy smokes.
She's on fire.
Too many refunds. You return too many items. Send them back.
Really? Mm-hmm. Roll tape.
Some Amazon customers saying they were banned from the site for making too many returns. Whoa, I know some people in that category.
According to the Wall Street Journal, dozens of users have had their accounts canceled without warning and are not allowed to open a new one or buy
I covered
things.
this story for Fox Business News. So.
But the decisiveness of that slap was impressive.
It was strong.
All right, we'll see if you can keep it up in round 2.
I'm completely shaken up.
Making me nervous. Question 2. There was a hairy situation this week at San Antonio International Airport, a wild animal got loose and ran around that facility. What kind of animal was it? Griff Jenkins.
Let me think. I have to get my ape species. It was a baboon.
A baboon. Well, that's specific. I thought you were going to say lemur. Was it a baboon? Roll tape.
There was just one monkey wandering around the airport cargo hold. The rhesus macaque, named Dawkins, was confined to an area away from passengers. It took dozens of animal workers about an hour to capture the elusive guy.
Okay, so this is, look, I don't make these calls. We have a whole panel of judges, and did they just ding you?
They dinged me.
Oh,
they dinged me. All right.
Sorry.
Come on, Orm. Come on, Orm. This is tough. This is tough.
Okay, that's unbelievable. And our judges just said that due to technical difficulties, your total is not reflected on screen, but it's 1 to -1.
Okay. Okay.
I have a lot of way to go. This could be it.
Scoreboard's going crazy. Now you've got 3, but look, we're the final call here.
Yeah.
Question 3. One of the most talked about moments at the royal wedding was a performance by the Kingdom Choir. They sang a gospel version of which 1960s classic song?
Oh, I heard it. I watched it.
Stand By Me.
Oh, yes.
Stand By Me.
Right.
Ben E. King. Is that correct?
He's right.
Stand by me, yeah. Stand by me, stand by me, stand by me.
I think that's the first time they've ever had Stand By Me choir in that.
I didn't see the wedding, but I like that. That was really nice. Okay, so it's 0 to 1. You're coming back.
I had to get out of the negative.
He's stealthy. Question
that was
4.
quick.
This one, multiple choice. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio is backing a proposed bill this week that would ban which plastic product from all city restaurants? Is it A, bottles, B, utensils, C, straws? Griff Jenkins.
I'm guessing here. Straws.
Straws.
It just sounds like a de
Griff.
Blasio move.
Is it straws?
Advocates say too many straws end up in landfills and the oceans. Under the proposed bill, restaurants and fast food chains would be barred from giving straws out.
You know, I don't know how we found ourselves in the final round in sudden death with tied 1 to 1. I told you, Christina.
I know. I started out strong.
Underrate him, right? It's sort of the laid-back politeness, the physical incapacitation. Final question.
Okay.
Ready?
Here we go.
During a Yale commencement speech on Sunday, Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State, tried her hand at prop comedy by putting on what kind of hat? Griff Jenkins.
A Russian hat.
A Russian hat?
A Russian hat.
It's kind of warm for that, isn't it? Let's see. Does the tape back up Griff Jenkins?
A Russian hat.
It would have been a great joke if she didn't say anything and if she just put it on her head.
I love the way that Hillary is now doing visual comedy. I think Vladimir Putin should make a chief commissar of state-approved jokes in Moscow.
Yeah.
You just learned one of the most valuable lessons about working here at Fox, Christina, and I know you're going to be here a long time and prosper now that you know it.
Oh, okay.
Never compete with Griff. I would never.
And tune in
Well, I
tomorrow
almost want to rematch.
to FBN. She'll be reporting from Washington here.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
Great. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to meet you.
Yeah.
Griff, here's the Eric Wemple mug.
Don't you
4th
have
in a
many?
row.
Thank you.
Do you have many? Do you want to give this one to
He's
me?
got many. Yeah, he's got a whole.
I have a collection
4
going.
victories.
I
Got
have
a whole
a collection
dinner set.
going. Me and the Sling, we're collecting them all.
It's unbelievable. I hope you'll come back.
Yes, I would love to.
That's it for this week. Follow the news each and every week and see if you can beat our experts here at Fox. We are back next Thursday. Memorial Day will be airing, by the way, the ultimate final exam. It's going to feature the best moments from the past year of this segment, and it's good. We'll be right back. Well, if you look carefully, you'll see subtle signs of decay throughout our society. Starbucks, for one example, recently announced that going forward, its seats and bathrooms will be open to non-paying customers. That's bad news if you want to bring your kids there. Pretty good news if you're a vagrant. Meanwhile, in New York, a couple had to evict their 30-year-old son from their basement because he refused to move out. Many defended his decision to live there forever. Mike Rowe is the host of the TBN show Somebody's Gotta Do It. The latest season of that will debut soon. He just spoke to us about these stories and how they may be connected. Here it is. Joining us tonight, Mike Rowe. Good to see you, Mike.
Tucker, how are you?
Couldn't be better, but bewildered, and maybe you can clear this up. Starbucks announcing you no longer have to buy anything to lounge around its stores or use the bathroom. Meanwhile, 30-year-olds are suing to stay in their parents' basements. Are these stories connected? Do they tell us something bigger about where the country is going?
Dogs and cats living together.
Exactly.
Look, personally, I'm in the midst right now of doing what I do every year, which is try and give away work ethic scholarships. It gets harder every year. So,
wait, it gets harder to give away money?
We've given away $5 million over the last 5 years. And yes, every year it gets increasingly difficult to affirmatively reward work ethic. There's some things my scholarship requires you to do that other scholarships don't. You have to write essays and make videos and sign a sweat pledge. And when people are often confronted with these hoops through which I ask them to leap, they take what you call umbrage at that, and I find it fascinating. It doesn't bother me so much because I understand that a valuable thing is almost always a thing that's in demand, and work ethic is very much in demand. But to answer your question, why is it harder to find it? I think that probably does have something to do with the expectations that have evolved out of the safe space movement, which you've done a lot to talk about on your program, and I'm starting to think that maybe there is a link between the expectations a patron might have in a Starbucks vis-a-vis the expectations a squatter who just happens to be genetically tied to you might have vis-a-vis the basement in which he currently dwells, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I mean, of all the divides in the country, I think you could probably make a pretty interesting case that there's a fissure running through the expectation of what happens when we elevate safety and feelings to a level of primacy. I think it creates a real disconnect that people are struggling to parse.
Well, wait a second. Are you saying that safety isn't the most important thing ever?
I'm saying that everybody wants to go home safe at the end of the day. Safety always would be a delightful bromide, a wise platitude. Safety first is the stuff of idiocy. It allows us to begin to believe that somebody other than us might care more about our well-being than we do, and the minute we buy into that nonsense, then we embrace the warm grip of complacency. So no, safety is not the enemy, but if you make it the priority, then let's just wrap ourselves in bubble pack and drive at speeds approaching 5 miles an hour and never assume anything that could ever be confused with risk.
That is really deep. When you say safety first, you're assuming. No, this is one of the many unarticulated assumptions that govern our society, and no one ever examines them in the light of day, and you just did. So when you say explain that a little bit more. When you say safety first, you're assuming that someone out there cares more about your well-being than you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm saying that on Dirty Jobs, my crew and I sat through over 100 mandatory safety briefings, and through the first couple of seasons, they were very effective because we listened like this. We were very concerned. We were in a dangerous, hostile, unknown environment. But over time, the big safety first placards and the mandatory boxes that you have to check and the lockout tagout procedures, these things start to sound like the teacher in Charlie Brown, right? It's wah, 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 wah. And you stop listening. So the unintended consequence of telling you that nothing is more important than your safety is the very dynamic that leads people to walk across Fifth Avenue when the little man says walk, instead of looking both ways.
Exactly.
It's not a coincidence that the most dangerous intersections in the world are intersections that have signs that tell you when to walk. So again, we've talked about this with the minimum wage, we've talked about it with a lot of different things, but the unintended consequences of magnifying a virtue to a place it doesn't deserve to occupy will always come back to kick us in the throat.
Really deep. So are there safety briefings on your new show? You've got one of the biggest digital shows that's ever been. How much safety is in that show?
Well, safety, like I said, is always present in everything I've done. Dirty job, somebody's got to do it. Returning the favor. I mean, we always focus on going home in one piece. But part of doing that, in my world, is to say safety third. Now, that's controversial. That makes people go, what are you talking about? What's more important than safety? And now suddenly you're having a conversation about something that will ultimately redound to personal responsibility. Right. Safety third is just a way of cutting through the warm milk and the soft tissue that makes everybody comfortable. And when I say everybody, I mean actuarial accountants, I mean HR, I mean insurance adjusters. You've done it. How many times have you got on a plane, you know, and been told by the pilot that the most important thing is to get you home in one piece? Just once, I'd like the pilot to say, hey, look, sit back and relax because I love my wife and my kids or my husband and my daughters, and I'm going to get myself home in one piece. Have fun. Strap yourself in for the ride. You've never been in better hands. Adios.
Exactly. And by the way, you can't control your life anyway. If the plane goes down, prayer's all you got. So, like, let's stop lying. And also, joy and achievement are more important than safety. Anyway, Micro, that was great. It was great to see you. Thank you.
You too.
Diversity, obviously our greatest strength, and like most great things, it's not free. We'll tell you what it pays at the local college near you next.